Lissenborg is Europe's hottest new country. This is the focus group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Focus Group. Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. We are the Focus Group here every Wednesday with an audio-only replay on Saturdays or whenever you time shift your media. Find all about us and all of our media properties, including our podcast, TFG Unbuttoned, at focusgroupradio.com. While you're there, please give us a follow or a like or a subscribe or whatever they ask you to do. Mark down here, he said he was confused he said it wasn't easy to follow something. I don't know.
Well, as long as he listens, right?
Yeah, no, he listens. Hey, I had a quick question for you, John. Have you been following this craziness about Madonna on Instagram? Do you follow her at all?
I've heard a little bit about it. So what's going on?
Well, I'd gone over there. Well, apparently over the weekend or right before, or a couple days ago, before the weekend, she had done people were complaining about her plastic surgery, and they said she's almost like Norma Desmond. Like she just needs to say, it's time to get off the stage. Mm-hmm. But she's done all this kind of crazy, I guess, plastic surgery. In some pictures, people certainly will pick pictures to make somebody look
bad,
not their best.
Yeah.
It almost reminded me of that Pete Burns from Dead or Alive, who looked absolutely horrible with some of his plastic surgery. But she did a lot. She did a big hit of Poppers, and she said it was her first time, and wanted to see what it was all about, and did a big hit on the Instagram with some other people. And
so she videotaped herself, having her first hit of,
and she's got all of this, tin on her teeth, and I mean, it's just she's gone. She's just. If you get a chance,
does she do the thing she wears, the grill?
Yeah, she kind
of. Yeah.
So between the lips blown up, she's all stung and swollen, and the metal cutting her lips, and then she had just little things over her nipples, and doing the hit of Poppers and dancing around. And
how old is she now?
64 ish.
So, I think that all of us, as we age, we kind of recognize that that is the provenance of the young, right? Like being a star, doing the concert tours. And she was at a particular unique time when we bought albums, right?
Right.
So I guess that's my simple way of saying, why is she doing this?
Well, she has a tremendous catalog of music.
Yes.
And, as you said, she was a
star worldwide
of our generation of growing up in the 80s and 90s, and certainly is a talent and certainly managed her brand quite well. And everybody loves her for that. But you look at this sort of thing. I just shook my head because Richard and some people down here we were talking about, he's like, have you seen Madonna? And I don't know if she's doing it for shock value. Because that was her thing, right? She used to go on. She was, what was it? Night.
Well, just remember Truth or Dare,
right? But what was that other? And this was the Sex Book, so she was some anniversary. Maybe it was 30 years of the Sex Book. But Nightline, she used to go on and be provocative and talk against the church or whatever. And I'm thinking, okay, is this her still trying to be relevant, or still trying to push buttons? But the other one right up there with her is Martha Stewart. It's like, Martha, please, honey. I don't need you to stir anything else up.
This is sort of fascinating to me because you know who Kylie Minogue is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I was once told by a friend who's French that while Madonna was all the rage in America, Kylie Minogue was all the rage in the rest of the whole world. So, like that kind of thing. Because she was a huge... I haven't, every time I read about Kylie Minogue, it might be, she's remixing something or she's in studio... But I don't read about her doing a hit of Poppers on Instagram. So no. I guess it's the personality and the need for the ringing the bell, right? Like the Pavlovian dog.
Well, Cher certainly. Cher is older. Cher's 10 or 15 years older than Madonna, as is Elton John, a few others that are doing their music and farewell tours or whatever. And have, Cher looks darn good for all the...
Yeah,
she makes no bones about the fact that she's had a little nip and tuck here and there. But there's certainly a way you could gracefully,
I agree. I agree.
move along. But I don't know. Maybe that's just her personality. Anyway, I just didn't know if you would follow it. If you get a chance, click on
Yeah.
some of the pics. Take a look. See what
I
you
am
think.
now. Yeah, you now got me doing that. Hey, you know me and my love of the English language, right?
Uh-oh.
So I found a word that I think you'll enjoy. Remember last week on the show we talked about that Colorado client we had that was still delivering on humorous
Yes.
things. You recall that you and I were on a call once where one of the founders of that company said that I spoke in a flowery way. Perhaps I used too many words, but it's flowery. It was flowery. John's very flowery.
Language is flowery. Yes.
So we routinely watch, if we're having a bad day or if we don't want to watch the news, we'll literally turn on Downton Abbey. It doesn't matter what season it is or what's happening because we just know we're at the Abbey and there's the upstairs, downstairs, the whole bit. Well, Carson the butler the other day, I forget which episode it was or what season, he used a word that I had never heard before, and I had to look it up, but you're going to love this. So he said something to the effect of, he was giving a speech, and he goes, I will attempt to not be prolix in my remarks. So I had to rewind, watch it again, prolix, Prolix, and literally it means using or containing too many words, tediously lengthy. And here's an example. He found the narrative too prolix and discursive. So, had that client been a little bit more on the ball, she would have said on that conference call, John can be a little too prolix at times.
I don't think that word would have crossed their lips.
You read my mind precisely. Thank you, Tim. But, she could have. It might have been a bit of a surprise.
Flowery was a stretch.
Flowery was quite the stretch. Yeah,
was a
that is
stretch.
very true.
Flowery was a
So
stretch.
we have Madonna doing poppers on Instagram, and we have Carson the butler teaching us a new word called prolix, Prolix.
I get a
That's
new
the
word a
focus
day.
group.
I get a new word a day that comes into my little.
Do you really?
Yeah, and I try to guess what it is because you were always good about deciphering things.
So give an example. Do you have an example, or is it?
I think that prolix or whatever you said came up. And what I have to do sometimes is I go to how'd you say it, and I click on it because it will pronounce
That
it too.
is a huge help as well because I often mispronounce stuff. Yeah.
So I've done that, but I don't have one off the top of my head. But it is funny because on Jeopardy, then once in a while things will come up on Jeopardy and be like, oh, I remember that.
Well, another example of language is we saw Bob's mom 2 Saturdays ago. Took her to get some chest x-rays because she had some a chest cold that was clearing up. Well, the radiologist submitted the x-rays to the portal. You know how you can look at your portal now and all your information. And there was a report that accompanied it. And I spent 15 minutes with Bob going to the dictionary and deciphering at least
my
10 different
God.
words to basically learn that the right part of her lung had a minor collapse, and it was due to, this happens frequently with fluid buildup or something, but the language they were using was so far removed from simply saying, well, there's a little bit of problem in the right lung.
Yeah, she had fluid in her right lung.
There you go. That's exactly what it was. Yeah.
I hate when people do that in software a lot with tech stuff. I used to hate that when people would come in and talk to me. I'm like, can you just explain it to me in English? Can you tell me
Yeah.
what's going on? I don't need to know about all the.
Well,
you don't
first you
need
got to hit
use all
Command
the
Alt Delete, and then you got to reboot, and then you got to do this, and you got to load your site. Yeah. Okay. Fine.
little craziness. So hey, how our show works. If you haven't figured out so far, we do a little banter up front, and then we have what caught our eye story that John and I found during the week. And then we do we have deep discount segment where we pick some movies and talk about new releases they have. It's one of our sponsors. And then we do our business birthday, and then we do a little shop talk. And this week we're going to talk about some secrets that Apple uses for the interview process, which I was surprised about.
Me too.
So, Mr. Nash, without further ado, what caught your eye this week?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
Well, whenever the Queen of England comes up on the radar, it catches my eye because I just fell in love with her. It's like the movie The Queen with Helen Mirren, and the Prime Minister Tony Blair's wife says, everybody goes soft in the knees for the Queen, like she's their mother or something. This is we'll talk about this. So, okay. The headline reads, Queen Elizabeth II and her unexpected friendship with this A-list actor. It's an American male actor. And I think if I gave you 3 guesses, you would probably not guess who this friendship that she developed towards the end of her reign was with. It still shocks me. So I'll just proceed then. It seems the late Queen Elizabeth II had friends in so
Can I
many.
guess?
You try. Okay, try.
And I'm going to throw. Well, no, I won't guess. I don't want to ruin the story. But
Go- no, no.
I was only going to guess based upon there was one actor that was hanging around the royal family, and I thought it was weird. He was hanging around William and Kate,
Who was it?
Mr. Cruz.
Oh, there you go. This took me by surprise. That's who the friend is. So
Did you
here's
see?
here-
Did you see him hanging around with them? I thought that was an
Yes.
odd. I thought that was an odd. So I didn't even know this story. I haven't seen this, so I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take that away. But I thought
I'm
it was an
amazed.
odd thing, but he was separated. You know how tall William is.
Yeah.
You know, you can't. So they were trying to move Cruz, but he was hanging around with them, and I was like, "What is he doing there? Was it James Bond or something?"
No, and if it had been like Daniel Craig, I think he's a British actor who played
Right.
Bond, that would make sense. But it seems the late Queen had friends in high places, and apparently Hollywood is no different. So Elizabeth, the Queen, grew close with Tom Cruise in the final weeks before her death, and I don't know that reporting is, she grew close. Okay, well, let's figure it out. And a report from the Sunday Times of London, per their page 6, wink, wink, so we know it's a gossip thing. A close source said the two really hit it off over the summer, with Cruise appearing in Elizabeth's Platinum Jubilee celebrations. Of course, William and Kate were there as well. They added, the Queen let it be known that she was really disappointed not to have met Tom at the pageant. So he was invited to have a special tour of Windsor Castle with everything laid on. Afterwards, just the two of them had tea together.
Oh my gosh.
She loved seeing him, and they really hit it off, so much so that she invited him back for lunch. He was even allowed to fly a helicopter into Windsor and land, near the castle. So the article ends with, could you imagine those conversations? No, I can't, because has she seen his movies? Like, what, did they talk about Scientology? I mean, because he's a Scientologist, right?
Did he try to convert her? Is she on planet
So what do you
Xenon
think they
or
talked?
something?
What do you think
Xenon.
they talked about?
Oh, Rod Hubbard. I don't know, but that's funny because.
And
so
you
what
saw this thing with.
Well, what I had seen was that he was. So it must have been he was there for the Platinum Jubilee, I guess, right?
Yes.
So, but they kept showing pictures of William and Kate together with him, and I thought that was odd because I thought of all the actors in the world.
Why him? Yeah.
So this is funny that they've also now moved it on to her. So obviously they must have. I wonder why him of all actors was involved. She must have liked his movies, I guess.
She either watched the Mission Impossible films. She. It's
Something.
It's a head scratcher.
It's a head scratcher. Yeah.
Because I'm trying to think of that tea for a minute. Mr. Cruz, do you like marmalade on your muffin? I mean,
Yeah.
what are they bonding over precisely? But hey, that's just going to be one of those mysteries we'll never know unless he decides to say what they talked about.
Nobody ever gives in, do they? Nobody ever
No, they
tells you
don't.
anything.
No.
I wonder if anybody will.
You know what book I'm dying to get?
Which
Not
one?
necessarily the Queen's, but Jackie Kennedy's. Remember her diaries are supposed to be published like 50 years after her death. We may be out of the picture by then, but that's something I want to read.
You think so?
Oh yeah.
You think there's some dirt in there.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. I don't. Yeah. So now I'm gonna have to do some research on this with the Queen. Then it's funny that she
if
was
you
there.
Google what did Tom Cruise and Her Majesty talk about, yeah, you're gonna
Corgis?
get something.
And their corgis. I don't know. Is he married now?
I don't believe so. Actually, that's a great question. I don't think so.
Maybe she tried to marry him up to Bubbles DeVere.
Everyone call me Bubbles, darling. Everyone does. Mrs. DeVere, you haven't paid for your stay and the last check bounced. Oh, that's horrible, horrible. Did you call my husband on the Monte Carlo line? What's the number? 1-2-3-4-5-6-7-8-9.
Those are those are the best, and you really can't find them on.
Do you have the DVDs?
I don't, but
Oh.
have to get them at the deep discount.
Yes. Well, if you can find them.
Yeah, they're tough to
but
find.
We cherish our Little Britain discs. Oh, that's terrible, terrible, darling. Have you reached him on the Monte Carlo line? What's the number? 1-2-3-4-5-6-7-8-9.
Very clever, darling. So,
She's going to the Solari bed. My turn. Push. Anyway, sorry, folks.
So, we're not allowed to laugh in the mic.
No, you can. I can't.
Oh, okay.
You can, yeah.
So, So my story, what caught my eye this week, and I opened it up with our teaser this week, as Lissenberg is apparently the hottest new country in Europe. And so everybody knows that Americans tend to be very bad with geography. And there are these little, I would say they're almost like little hamlets like Monaco, where there's tiny, tiny little places like Luxembourg or other tiny little spots. What is the Andorra? These
Yeah.
tiny, tiny countries in Europe. So this headline saying that Lissenberg was the hottest new country in Europe, I thought, okay, where is it? So I look and there was an actual map, and it was somewhere between Portugal and Spain. It's all mapped out. And this Frenchman had gone on and had essentially had written about that he was the prime minister of Lissenborg, and had written it in French, and had gone on social media, had initially gone on Twitter, and said that he had totally made up this country called Lissenborg, and said that he photoshopped in where it was. And I went and I looked at the map. I'm like, oh, okay. And because he had written it in French, they said the Americans totally fell for it. He said, I'm sure the Americans don't even know the name of this country. And he said that it immediately got 112,000 likes, almost up to 1 million. And then all these other people started, getting involved and adding on to the mystery. So there was a Department of Defense. Somebody had done a flag. Someone posted a national anthem on YouTube. Someone actually did a Wikipedia page. Wikipedia was smart enough to not post it, and they took it down.
This is so not what I was expecting.
Ryan Airlines ended up saying, we're proud to announce our newest base in Lissenborg. And they did a logo, which is John has. If you're watching, John will see the
I
Listen
thought
Air
that
and
was
Cargo.
actually like a real one of those.
Did you think this was a real flag?
like an old European flag, like a Monaco thing, right?
So did you think this was a real place?
Malta, Monaco, Lissenborg. Yeah.
So you're another one like the Americans. They said the Waze app got involved. They've now had celebrities that have visited, just got back from Lissenborg. So they said this has taken over. They've had 75 million views on TikTok for Lissenborg.
You find
it's
the
gone
best
crazy.
stuff. I tell you, this is hysterical.
And they
I can't believe this is all just made up. This is made up, right?
Yeah, it's all made up. So they said that Lissenborg right now has 3.3 million followers, 4.2 million likes, and just over the weekend, 761,000 people have have gone on to look. But they said because they did it in French, and because they just think people were gullible about the map of Europe. And, because I did look at it, I thought, well, wait a minute, there's no country there. I mean, I remember looking.
You're pretty good with the geography.
I am, and I looked at it, and I thought all they did is they essentially just photoshopped they just photoshopped a country between Portugal, Spain, and France. They just kind of clunked it on there and said Lissenborg, and people, oh yeah, we know right where that is. And it says we photoshopped a country at the border of Spain and Portugal. And so anyway, this thing is blown up. So if you get a chance, my
Of
French
course,
isn't
Tim,
good, but
now that I'm looking at
sûr
this-
que les Américains ne connaissent pas le... Essentially it says, I'm sure the Americans won't even recognize the name of this country. And then, oh, sure we do. We know exactly where that is. So everybody, we're not so stupid. Blah, 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 blah. Yes, you are.
Listen, Listen, Borg.
Borg.
B-O-U-R.
So they said even Fox News got into.
Are they pronouncing it Listenborg?
It might be. Oh, I was saying Lissenborg, but maybe.
Well,
it's
because we know the
Listen.
word listen, but I wonder
Right.
if they, yeah.
So they said what was even funnier was they said that Fox News was making fun of the dumb Americans for falling for it, but then this Frenchman went and corrected Fox News by saying, not so fast. You had actually misplaced the Donbass region of Ukraine and Pakistan. So they had on the map. So they said, Fox
Pie
News
in
is,
your face.
right. Fox
Pie in
News
the
is
face.
right. Fox News is not. They said you stop making fun of your own folks. Essentially. So that was it. They said it's typical of the French making fun of Americans by creating a country.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so that's it. So Lissenborg. So if you get a chance, we'll have to head over.
The
The flag did look very Eastern European to me, though.
Yeah,
It's
like
Polish flag with the big gold eagle and
a little Napoleonic too,
right. What's the
with
N
that
for?
with that crest. Wait, let's go back to Lissenborg for a minute. It has that wreath, like that laurel thing, and the eagle holding the lightning bolts. I mean, there's that lots going on there.
Yeah, no, I
It's
didn't.
believable.
Yeah, it is very believable. So it was funny because I thought people, and I thought initially when I sent this to you, because spell check kept correcting it to Luxembourg. And I kept having to go in and retype Listenborg.
Listenbourg.
Right.
Listenborg.
Yeah, so that's that. So, hey, many of you know that Deep Discount's a friend of ours here on the Focus Group, and we appreciate you supporting them by heading over to our website page, which is focusgroupradio.com, and the Deep Discount logo is there, so be sure to click on it. They've got a winter site-wide sale going on right now, so you're able to own your passion or give your passion to your friends at the holiday season. Be sure to shop around. And so they've got new release this week, plus John and I each pick a movie. So, Mr. Nash, what did you pick this week?
Well, I didn't actually pick a movie. I'm supporting one that I feel like a representative of the American Film Institute, whose mission is to get people to see the top 100 films of all time. And the film that you picked, which has been re-released in 4K cleaned up print, is what I'm going to help support.
Okay.
So let's see what you picked.
Well, it was the same thing. I picked the same thing, Casablanca.
There we go. 4K Casablanca, Humphrey Bogart, Ingrid Bergman, Claude Rains as the inspector, fabulous role. I mean, just Sidney Greenstreet. You can't ask for a better cast, and Tim has not seen Casablanca.
I know. Well, apparently all of Deep Discount knows that, as well as
All the marketing team over
all
there.
the marketing
yeah.
team. So Lauren and Lori were laughing about it, and they mentioned Casablanca. So I said, well, 3 Academy Awards. I said, I've got to see this, and they laughed about it when it came out, and they said, well, you're going to have to see it now that there's actually a new release about it. But Deep Discount has lots of new releases.
Yeah, but this 4K one is $24.99, and to prep Tim for some of the most famous lines from Casablanca, in the spirit of Pick That Flick, I've picked 2 lines that will get you in the mood for Casablanca. So here's the first one, and this is Humphrey Bogart plays Rick, who's the owner of a club called Rick's in Casablanca, and this is during World War II. The Nazis are coming, or they've already taken over, or they've occupied France, because Casablanca's in French-occupied Morocco. I keep forgetting. But here's this first line.
Sam,
Yes, boss.
it's December 1941 in Casablanca. What time is it in New York?
What? My watch stopped.
I bet they're asleep in New York. I bet they're asleep all over America. Of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, she walks into mine.
A classic line, because Ingrid Bergman comes into his club in Casablanca, and the last time he saw her was, in fact, in Paris, when she thought her husband, Victor Laszlo, had been detained by the Nazis. He might have been dead. So another famous line, though, is this one here. So I'm prepping you with kind of a Pick That Flick feel.
Okay,
right?
and then I've got a question for you.
Go ahead.
No, after you got another line?
Okay, yeah, this is another famous line from the movie.
Hilda, I'm no good at being noble, but it doesn't take much to see that the problems of 3 little people don't amount to a hill of beans in this crazy world. Someday you'll understand that. Now. Here's looking at you, kid.
Yeah, now he says, here's looking at you, kid, at least 3 times in the movie. It's a famous line. Here's looking at you, kid. All right, question from you for...
Is this a slow movie? Am I going to fall asleep in this? Is this like
Not
the
at
English
all.
patient? Is this
No.
like the English patient? Or one of
No,
those?
no. There's nothing
It's
like
going
the
to
English
keep me.
Patient.
Going to keep me going.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm excited then.
Sit back, enjoy it. It is...
Sounds like I need a cocktail. Need a highball.
I think you would classify this as
Old-fashioned.
film noir as well, because it's 1942, so it's got this incredible black and white look, and I bet this print is amazing. So that little journey down Pick That Flick lane for Tim, there is a release this week, and it's The Power of the Dog. Now, this is a movie you did see, I believe.
I did see this. Yes.
So Power of the Dog was originally released on Amazon Prime, if I'm not mistaken, but has now been released through the Criterion Collection. So thank you, Criterion, for releasing this. I bet there's a lot of great extra footage on there, but it's 1920s Montana. Swaggering rancher Phil Birch, who's played by Benedict Cumberbatch, readily extended the cruelty he heaped upon passive brother George, Jesse Plemons, to his siblings' fragile new wife, Rose Kirsten Dunst. Already you have an amazing cast there, and her sensitive med student son, Peter. Fatefully, the young man discovers the compulsions beneath Birch's macho facade, and Phil's attempts to mend fences may be his undoing. Oscar winner Jane Campion was the director of this, and there was a lot of I'll say it this way, I heard a lot of plus or minus. There was very little in between. If someone loved it, they loved it. If they didn't like it, they didn't like it. That's my memory of that. I'm not sure where
Did
you
you
fell
see it?
on that. No, I have not.
You
And
need
I'm
to
dying
watch
see
it. You need to watch it. I kept waiting for. I enjoyed it, but I kept waiting for something else to happen. I had
Another
in my
shoe to drop.
mind. Well, I had in my mind where the story was going,
Yeah.
and in my mind, that's not where the story had gone. So for me, I kept thinking something else was going to happen, and it didn't. So that was. Now that's not a good or bad thing. It was just I was trying to look ahead to see where it was headed. But I'll be curious to see what you think about it, of The Power of the Dog.
Well, everybody raved about it. It was one of those things you had to see, and I know the twist. I do know the twist, so I'll be curious to see. So, recapping, folks, it is deep discount, and it's their site-wide winter sale. You can get the deep discount by visiting our site, focusgroupradio.com, and clicking on the deep discount logo, and start your shopping experience. And, of course, there's a lot of deals going on, especially as the holiday time approaches. We jointly picked a new release that's coming out yesterday, actually Tuesday, and that is the re-release of Casablanca 4K mastering with Blu-ray and a digital copy included in the pack, $24.99. Tim's going to see it soon. We're not going to put a date on it, but you're going to see it soon. And the new release this week is from the Criterion Collection. The Power of the Dog received incredible reviews when it came out, so this is a definite thing we would recommend. And there you go. So that's deep discount for you folks. We want to thank them for being with us. And we are going to take a super quick break. And when we return, we have a business birthday and a shop talk. So don't change the dial.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Now back to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Available pretty much everywhere.
Hey, welcome back to The Focus Group. Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. We are The Focus Group. Be sure to catch us here every week, as well as our podcast, TFG Unbuttoned. You can find us and all of our media at focusgroupradio.com. So, Mr. Nash, we've got our business birthday upon us.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So our business birthday today, November 9th, we've profiled somebody else involved with this company as well, but supposedly this is the actual founder, Yvon Chouinard, Y-V-O-N.
Chouinard. French or Swiss? Yeah, French, probably.
French, was Canadian, and they moved to Lewiston, Maine, which is very remote. It's remote now. I can't imagine what it was in the 30s
Yeah,
and 40s.
true, right.
So as 84 years old today, he's an American rock climber, environmentalist, philanthropist, outdoor industry businessman. His company, Patagonia, is known for its commitment to protecting the environment. He's also a surfer, kayaker, falconer, and particularly fond of tenkara, which is fly fishing.
I thought you were going to say he was fond of the ladies after falconing,
Fond
right?
of the ladies. And he's written about climbing issues and ethics and mixing environmentalism and business. You might have known or seen him in the news recently. The New York Times just did a big expose, and it was all over the news about him giving Patagonia away. He's essentially given the whole company away other than 2% of it to make sure that the $3 billion company takes all of its profits and money to help the environment and help fix our environment. But what I didn't know about him is that he started out, he had moved out west and was very much involved in climbing the large mountains in Yosemite and the other peaks out in the western U.S., in western Canada and Alaska. And he had developed climbing equipment and very technical climbing equipment and made a living and a lot of money on that in the 70s, 60s, 70s, up until the 80s. And he sold the company in 1989. It was Chouinard Equipment. They actually filed bankruptcy. But he had realized in all of this climbing equipment that he was actually harming some of the mountains and the faces of the mountains with some of the steel cabling,
Crampons and the stuff they knock in. Yeah.
that, and some of the heavy metal steel equipment that they were using in some of the cracks in the mountains. He also in 1970 had taken a trip to Scotland and bought some rugby shorts, and he had sold them with great success. So that's how he started Patagonia. So his other company was called Chouinard Equipment, which was this very technical climbing gear, which he did quite well with. But then the Patagonia, which we all know for as the retailer for the Patagonia clothing, which is very widely and globally known brand of rugged technical clothing, that's where he really got his financial success. And so they said when he started the company, he opened the first retail store in 1984. He had opened an on-site cafeteria that only offered healthy and mostly vegetarian food. He also provided on-site child care. He also committed the company to tithing for environmental activism, and he committed 1% of all sales or 10% of profits, whichever was greater, to environmental causes. And was very concerned with also having all the employees involved in environmental projects locally and gave them time off, and also supported a lot of their environmental projects that they did on the local level. So as I said, in 2018, he was upset. He was listed on the Forbes list of billionaires, and he got pissed off. He said he didn't want to be a billionaire. He didn't like that. So he decided he wanted to sell the company. So he contacted his he said, rather than going public or rather than transferring it to his children didn't want to be known as people who just got this money. Can you imagine? So
he's not in the mold of other billionaires we know. Hey, let's buy Twitter.
yeah, no. So he said, they said even today he wears raggedy old clothes, drives a beat up Subaru, and splits his time between a modest home and a Ventura, California, and Jackson, Wyoming. He doesn't own a computer or a cell phone. They said when the Forbes ranking had come out and listed him as a billionaire, it really, really pissed him off. I don't have $1 billion in the bank and I don't drive a Lexus. He said he wanted to get himself off the list. And so that's when he decided, he called all his finance people or whatever and said, I want to get off this list. I don't want to be recognized as a billionaire. And he said, that's not who I am. So the company wasn't doing anything about it. So he said, if you don't do something, I'm going to start calling these people, cold calling this Forbes list of people and have somebody buy Patagonia. So they ended up coming to...
Could you imagine him calling?
Hello, you want to buy Patagonia?
Want to buy Patagonia? I'm selling.
So, yeah, so essentially what happened then is they put together a trust, which essentially the company will stay running, stay operational. It puts off about $100 million a year in profit, and this money will go to the environment. And I'm guessing this 2% that was held back, I guess will take care of the family. I don't know, but essentially 98% of the company has gone now to environmental causes. They said very different than most of these other folks that have done these sort of things, which give, a lot of these people give 1% or 10% of their companies, but to actually give the whole company away, they said was
amazing,
was quite a rarity. So that's our business birthday today.
It's kind of like, what's the thing that Bill Gates did? It was the Millionaire's Challenge or something where Warren Buffett, like they all committed a certain amount of their personal fortunes to philanthropy.
Right.
This is different. I mean, he's doing the whole company. It wasn't just a little piece of it.
Yeah, he says he's donated 98% of Patagonia.
Wow.
To a newly established nonprofit called the Holdfast Collective, which will be the recipient of all the company's profits and use the funds to combat climate change. So it's very admirable. But at 84, I guess he's done what he's done, and he made all this money. And he said he never went out to make all this money. But can you imagine? He had to have been a great businessman if you built this thing into a $3 billion company.
He knew what he was doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
So for someone
Agreed.
who says he's not a capitalist, I don't know. But happy birthday.
That's just
Mr.
sour grapes. That's sour
Chouinard.
grapes. Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
He can
That's
help
what
us
it is.
out, pay our mortgage, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to see. So that's our birthday there for Mr. Chouinard. Do you have any Patagonia clothing?
Used to select things like the anorak, that pullover
Right.
thing with the hood, like so. But it's still around. It's not like they made really quality, good outdoor
Right.
clothing.
Yeah, good stuff. So our shop talk today was stumbled across this. It's that Apple secretly uses these 3 interview tests to easily separate candidates. And this came out of an article out of Inc. magazine. And I was a little surprised when I read this. And so it says, it's no secret that Apple is known as one of the world's top employers, which in turn attracts some of the world's top talent. So they said, if you're one of the fortunate people to receive one of the interviews, they have such a high volume of applicants that they will challenge the hiring managers to interview on a larger scale, meaning that they'll interview people in groups.
That
And,
was the first one that surprised me. That group interview thing.
Right, to help weed out candidates. And so they found a solution. They said that they have these 3 secrets that they do is they put the people together in groups, and then depending upon what the job is or what area they are, they look at each person and see how they deal within the social dynamics of the group. And then they think that in their minds, they find the best candidates based upon the position by doing these 3, what they call their 3 secrets of the group. I guess we would call it group think and focus groups, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
what was the first one they would do?
the first thing they do with some of these group interviews is something called the pre-interview social assessment. So it could be that you're on a video call, which should be sort of like a Zoom thing, like a grid of people, or you're actually in a room with some other people and you're going to have this group interview. The article claims that about 10 minutes before the actual interview starts is when they begin this pre-interview social assessment. And it goes like this. Whether you're video or in person, the recruiter or the interviewer will start asking icebreaker questions. And, I guess I would say that's the equivalent of small talk.
Right.
How quick you are to answer seemingly trivial questions, how comfortable you are with answering questions and thinking on your feet, and the degree to which you have respect and decorum toward your fellow interviewees. Now, this would be at the start of the whole process, can say a lot about a candidate. So there are some people who are quick to jump in, stepping on other people's toes. Some are more relaxed about it or laid back, and some are graceful and don't even give a response. I'm going to call a little bit of... well, are we analyzing this whole thing point by point?
You could.
I don't think there's anything harmful with small talk, and I thought small talk happened all the time just to put people at ease. Because that's what I read into this, is like maybe their takeaway is how quickly are you at ease and how quickly do you fit into a group? Because I think that's what they're looking for ultimately, right?
I think so, but I think it depends upon, and I think that's why the 3 things are important. So in this first assessment, kind of you think you're just having the small talk.
Yeah, exactly.
But they're looking to see how you handle yourself. So in other words, if there were 4 or 5 people in the room together and you're just before the interviews start, I think the issue for there is, does somebody
Monopolize.
or is somebody respectful of the others in the room? In other words, are you just monopolizing the conversation? Now, in some cases, you might want somebody like that because maybe it's a sales role and you want somebody who's going to take command of the room. Mm-hmm. Or in another case, it might be, that person might not be who we want to handle this particular project. We need somebody who's a little more on the listening side, perhaps. So
Yeah.
I think that's how they would assess that. At least that's how I read that. So, which leads to the second one. It says the open forum presentation of questions. So it says during the Apple Group's interviews, the recruiter or interviewer will ask the group open-ended questions in an open forum style. So this would be, I would say, similar to the way you would be in school.
Classroom.
In the classroom. So this could reveal each candidate's unique style when it comes to team dynamics. So in other words, they'll ask a question. Some people may jump in with an answer right away for every question. Whether it was well thought out or not, others may seek to evaluate what others said, maybe come out with a counterpoint. Some may just sit quietly out of respect to their peers, which will also then give them opportunity to have either somebody ask them, well, what do you think? Or have them build in their minds what the response should be. So again, it's another one of those, team dynamics is how are the people handling these open-ended questions? I'm trying to think of what they might ask. How would you handle a situation where a customer does blank? And I guess
Yeah,
you
but
could
they,
just-
the part of this one that I glommed down to, and you hinted at it when you said classroom style. There was a sentence in here that read, much like in grade school, when a teacher asks their class a question, there are some evident personality types that quickly emerge after a few rounds of questions. And the minute that was put that way, you remember what it was being like. Who sat in the front? Who sat in the back?
Right. The brown
how
nose.
fast did,
Right.
yeah,
Yes,
how
that's
fast
the
did the hand goes up,
Right.
Where they know it all, the whole bit. And I think your second part of that, of the curiosity you have for what types of questions are they actually asking. And I think you got right to the core of it, especially if you think of the Apple Store. Customer comes in, their phone's broken, or they think it is.
Right.
What's your first thing? And you're going to get a bunch of responses that way, right?
Yeah. So, and then what was the third one that they shared?
And then the third is called the evolution of dynamics throughout the interview. The group interview enables Apple to get to know how candidates interact with not only the interviewers they are trying to impress, but also their fellow candidates whom they are competing against. And this is this one's interesting. By the end of the group interview, Apple is able to see whether the social dynamics evolved from the initial pre-interview chit-chat to the interview when candidates have switched gears from friendly banter to competition. So, generally people try to build connections through shared commonalities, which is something Apple might see at the start of the interview. But once people go into competition mode, i.e., I'm interviewing for this job, there's a tendency to shift gears from trying to relate to one another and move forward or toward trying to stand out from one another, says the psychology behind the competitiveness. What Apple is ultimately doing that many businesses, both large and small, tend to overlook is seeking candidates who are a good fit for the team they would be joining. So this goes all the way back to your thing of your initial question of like, well, okay, they're doing a group interview, but what kind of job are they interviewing for, right?
Yeah, because you're exactly right. Because I thought about levels of confidentiality,
Yeah.
or you don't want to. I don't know. There's so many traps in this sort of interview process. I think you don't want to insult somebody.
Totally,
You don't want to
totally,
insult
yeah.
another company. Who knows somebody else? You might know someone else who works at the company that somebody else is in there interviewing from, and you say something. So to me, this is fraught with a lot of
Yeah, totally, Tim.
a
It's
lot of
very
dan-
based on interpretation, right?
Yeah, and I'm surprised, unless they just do this for store help. Not that store help is, and I'm not taking anything away from the retail help, because that could be just as dangerous too. If somebody is a top-notch manager at a retail store at a mall, and they're interviewing to have the retail position at Apple, whether you're Gap or Crew or whoever, you don't want to lose your top retail person either.
No.
So
This also goes to when Steve Jobs was alive. There are a lot of articles like this about what it was like to be in the room with him, or what he sought in executive competency. And it was often spoken about that he looked for people who could answer him directly, who knew how to like put things into the simplest, cleanest form, and who, if he pushed back, they could push back as well. Kind of like, but it had interesting results. So Johnny Ive, the former head of design, used to couch his team on how to act in front of Steve Jobs before going to see him. I'm saying this because, so you have this process that Apple uses about group interviewing and figuring out dynamics to get the people in there. But then once you're in, there apparently is a whole other layer of behavior and dynamics associated with the executive suite. So Johnny Ive used to say, when they were presenting the original comps or the designs for the iPod, he had a favorite design, but he said to his design team, leave this off the side of the table. Let's have Steve look at these other three first. And so they go in there, and Steve, he touches things, he played with it. I don't want to use this. I don't like this. I don't like that. And they knew how to play him so well that
Right.
at the end, Johnny Ive was like, well, there's one other design we didn't show you that you might like. And it was the famous one with the click wheel. Remember the wheel? And
Yep.
So then he went and he said, okay, you got to make this smaller. well, we can't. And that's when he did his little Steve Jobs thing. I think I've told the story before. He walked over to a large fish tank that was built into the wall, and he dropped the prototype in. And they're all like, oh my God, what did you just do? And he said, look at all those air bubbles coming up from that prototype. There's space in there. You got to get rid of that space. Can you imagine working for somebody like that? I think they would be like, I'd either laugh or like cry.
Well, sometimes, yeah, because you don't know, you don't want to be in an environment where you're scared
Correct.
all the time.
You want to be a contributing member.
Right. There was a ad agency in Philadelphia where anyone who interviewed there, and everybody was warned, and I would have failed miserably if I
People were
interviewed there.
warned, you said?
People were warned when they went to interview with this guy because, and you know who it is, or you know of the agency, but one of the final questions he asked everybody, which would decide whether he may have liked you all the way up until this final question, but you had to tell him a dirty joke.
Yeah. I
And it
remember
had
you
to,
telling me this.
and it had to be the dirtiest joke. I don't have one off the top of my head. Would you be able to do that? If somebody did not warn you and said, okay, now we had a great interview. You've just spent, 30 minutes, 45 minutes with this person. Oh, one more thing. I'd like you to tell me the dirtiest joke you know.
Could what? Okay. Would you say that dirty might be off color?
Well, filthy. It had to be filthy, dirty, dirty joke.
Oh, okay. No, I don't have
I don't
any-
know. I don't have
yeah.
any of those. And so I don't know what I would say. And I remember I had a friend who was going to interview, and he and I were poking around trying to find one.
A dirty joke.
We were online trying to find a dirty joke for him to remember. But I thought I would have totally failed that test because you could ask me a question, how many red balls are there in Canada? And I could give you a math assignment.
Google used to do that.
Right, and we could talk through, well, there's this many households, this many
This
people,
many
you got to
kids,
figure.
yeah.
So you could come to some sort of directional idea on something like that. We could figure that out. But to just have a dirty joke off the top of my head,
Nope.
you and I don't talk like that anyway, but
We
I just- so-
don't. We off color, meaning I could tell a joke that my dad used to tell from the 70s that involved the Pope and a plane, but
right.
and it's not PC today, but it's not dirty. It's just
Right.
old.
So yeah, I don't, but I never understood where that got. I don't know. I guess everybody's. I just always thought that sort of.
My favorite that you had was you're a billboard. What do you say?
Yeah. You're a billboard. What do you say? And I just said I'm busy, and then he got mad at me because I was too quick.
Yeah,
He wanted to leave. He wanted to go to the bathroom. That's what the problem was.
He wanted you to sit there and think about it while he went. Yeah.
It's anyway.
But no, this was a good article that you found because I'm always interested to read the evolution of technique in terms of the interview process. The thing that I took away from this is that, my God, at least somebody's sitting in front of a human being having an interview. Whatever, if it's group interview or individual,
it's not the computer.
I'm sorry to say it that way, but this is all I hear, is that no one sits in front of someone. I wouldn't have had some of my first jobs out of college if I didn't have those random interviews from the New York Times. You'd circle the thing, send your resume in. None of this cover letter, custom stuff. You got a call, you went in. That was what they did, right?
Well, it's so much different. Well, we all know that it's the human interaction with people, which is so much different than a piece of paper. Or I hear so many people that go through these AI, artificial intelligence. They don't even talk to a person. They go through a PowerPoint answering questions, and it's how your eyes are looking at the camera.
And that was one of your friends recently. You told me this one, and she got almost to the end. You're like, what am I
Well, she's
doing?
gone through three different interviews,
Levels.
and she
Wow.
still hadn't talked to a person yet. And then she's just never heard. This is the craziest thing, and it was a well-known company.
By the way, that's another thing that's on the rise again, ghosting. It disappeared for a while when the labor market was super tight, but apparently employers will interview you and then never
Disappear?
hear from you again. Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
That was a good one. I'm glad you brought that up because at least if someone's going to, at least if you enter this, if you think about that kind of technique in terms of how you socialize, how you work with others, that has benefit moving forward.
Do you think you could work at the Apple Store? We talked about that once. If you were looking,
I would love to give it a shot. However,
do you have the patience, you think? Because you're very smart with this stuff. You're intuitive, which I think a lot of the genius people there are intuitive.
Okay, so your old laptop was my old laptop. Remember one day it started, and I remember I knew enough about it to run a certain hardware test, And when I went to the Genius Bar, I had a piece of paper, a printout of the test. And the guy says, hey, how are you? Super nice. I'm doing good. I said, hey, I ran the hardware test, and I believe these codes mean something is wrong with the CPU or the RAM, but it's or the motherboard or one of the three. And he starts smiling, and he starts tapping on something. He goes, you're done. Thank you. Great customer. And I'm like, he said, how did you know to do that? And I said, well, years ago, I had a problem that was similar to this. And that's when I struck up a conversation. So he said, we have to take this in. It's a new motherboard required. You're not going to get it back. It goes to Texas. I had to buy a new laptop that day just to have something to use for the time being. But we chatted, and I said, what's it like doing the Genius thing? And he said, he goes, you might think you're a great candidate for this, and you could be because you know a lot about it. He said, but a lot of the job is talking people off a cliff to get to the point of what's the problem, or is it a button I didn't push? And I thought about it for a while, and I thought, that's, language. Someone describes a problem to you, you see them do something, you're like, well, have you tried that? Or the time I went to the Genius Bar, one of my AirPods was like staticky, and the guy said, we need to run an audio test. And I said, no, you don't. It's something else is wrong. We need to run an audio test.
Okay.
And then he leans over the counter and says very quietly, 9 out of 10 times we give you a new pair if we run an audio test. And then he leans back, and I'm like, I think I need an audio test. There you go. That's the Genius Bar, right?
Yeah, so maybe it's I don't know. I just thought it might be good for you, but I think probably a lot of it is simple. It is probably what they said. There probably is simple things that.
Well, he said it's lots of tears. When people come in and it's a laptop problem or a phone problem, the first question they ask is, have you backed this up?
No.
What's the usual response?
No.
No. Okay. We're going to proceed from there, and there are going to be tears.
You idiot.
Yeah, really. Well, I always ask friends who have a problem. They're like, did you back it up? Oh, well, maybe. I'm like, okay.
Then you make
Last time I had a phone
that disappointed father face. Well,
there you go. Last time I had a phone problem, the iPhone 6S, I backed it up, went in. Guy says, did you back it up? I said, half an hour ago. Oh, we love you. I come back in an hour. They gave me a brand new phone. And he said, since you have a backup, this should be no problem. I was out of there like 40 minutes later, completely back up and running. So I guess the moral of the story is if you're in a group interview and there's chit-chat going on, you're probably being observed. And the second is if you go to the Genius Bar with an AirPod problem, ask for an audio test. You might get a free pair. And there's the focus group, right?
listen, laugh, and learn.
Listen, laugh, and learn. Hey, we want to thank you for joining us today here on the Focus Group. Remember to check out Deep Discount by going to focusgroupradio.com and clicking on the Deep Discount logo. 2 movies we showcased today. Casablanca, one of my favorites, Bob's favorite. We hope it will be a favorite of Tim someday.
It was a Bob favorite.
Oh, it's a huge Bob favorite, yeah.
Well, it just moved to the top of the list.
See, I can say it's a great movie, but if I say Bob likes it, and then it's top of Tim's list, like, oh, I better check it out. Okay. And the other one was The Power of the Dog, which stars Benedict Cumberbatch, and that's been released by the Criterion Collection, so check that out. Everybody, thanks again for making time to join us, and be safe out there, and we'll see you in the new week.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.